Well, okay, I'm reading today from First Timothy chapter 6 and in verse number 11. Now, at Philippi had aided and supported Paul in the ministry, and they had financially, and not only financially, but morally and spiritual support. One of the great churches in the New Testament. But there's an interesting statement, I think, in First Timothy chapter 6 and in verse number 11, in reference to the gift that they had given him. He said, not that I speak in respect of want. It isn't that I desired that from you, that I wanted your money, so to speak. For I have learned in whatever state or condition I am in, I am therewith to be content. Now, that's very challenging for a whole lot of people because what Paul was saying, no matter what the outward circumstances are, whether I'm poor, I've learned how to be abased, I've been at the bottom, and I've also abounded. But what he had learned in all those different circumstances in life was to be content. Now, I want to go a little deeper here for just a moment this morning, and that is this. A lot of people are not content with themselves. Do you remember Woody Allen, the famous comedian, once said, "My only regret in life is that I wasn't somebody else." And I want to address just for a moment the chronically unhappy and discontented. Not only perhaps contented about outward circumstances, but with themselves. And I've learned in life that people usually who are unhappy with themselves make people around them unhappy. And there's a great verse in Mark chapter 12. It's a tremendous verse that we're to love the Lord with all our heart, soul, and mind. That's the great commandment. That's the first thing we want to get right. And then Jesus says about loving your neighbor. And the second like unto that, that is the first commandment, is the one they didn't ask about, and that was loving your neighbor. But watch the last part, which is seldom addressed. Love the Lord, love your neighbor. And I say sometimes if you don't love your neighbor, then there's going to be a whole lot of trouble in the neighborhood. But it's that last thing that I want us to think about today, where he says, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, there's a whole lot of people that don't love themselves. They're unhappy and they're discontented. And because of that, they're very unstable. They're always going from one place to another. They're unstable relationships. A lot of them end in divorce, changing one job, quitting another job. And it's just instability throughout life. Now, Paul isn't saying when he says be content, you have to stay where you are, but I think we have to be content who we are. You don't even have to stay who you are. You can get better and move on. How about you? Are you contented with yourself, or would you rather be somebody else? Let me just end it this way. Put your life in relationship to God, and that changes everything. See you tomorrow.